Hello and welcome to your own classroom. Today in the Fast Track Revision series, we will be learning about human skeleton. Yes, the structure which forms the structural framework of the body and helps in the attachment of the muscles. It has got two subdivisions. The first one is axial skeleton and the second one is appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton lies along the longitudinal axis of the body and it includes skull, rib cage and the vertebral column. And the appendicular skeleton includes lateral parts like arms, legs, the pectoral girdle and the pelvic girdle. Now let's see an overview of everything. Skeleton has got 206 bones and in newborn it is 300 bones. So there is obvious reason that some bones might have got fused. Axial skeleton has 80 bones, out of which skull has 29, and within skull, facial bones are 14, 8 cranial bones, 6 ear ossicles, 3 in each ear, 1 hyoid bone. Hyoid is an U-shaped bone, and vertebral column has 26 bones, out of which there are 7 cervical vertebrae, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar vertebrae, 1 sacral and 1 coccygeal. In the fetus, there are 5 sacral vertebrae and there are 4 coccygeal vertebrae which get fused. Now let's talk about the appendicular skeleton. So we have seen earlier that it is situated at the lateral sides which actually extend outwards from the principal axis of the body, and it includes pectoral girdle, pelvic girdle, bones of arms and legs. So there are 6 girdle bones, 2 in pelvic girdle and 4 in pectoral girdle, out of which 2 are clavicle, which is also called as collarbone, and 2 are scapula. In the limbs there are 120 bones, out of which 60 are present in hands and 60 in legs. Now we will start with the detailed description of the bones in the skull. Cranium has got 8 bones and you can remember it by a trick PEST off. P stands for parietal, E for ethmoid, S for sphenoid, T for temporal, O for occipital and F for frontal. And you can also find a trick here, 211 211. So this is the number of the bones that are present in the cranium. There are 2 parietal bones, 1 ethmoid, 1 sphenoid, 2 temporal, 1 occipital and 1 frontal. Similarly, there are 14 facial bones and there's a trick to remember this. Vomer cannot make my pet zebra laugh. Vomer cannot make my pet zebra laugh, or you can also remember it with this trick. So you can make a mnemonic of your own, and that is, I think, would be much easier for you to remember. And vomer, that is 1 in number. Conky, it is also referred as inferior nasal conky, this is 2 in number. Nasal bones are 2 in number. Maxilla, 2 in number. Mandible 1, palatine 2, zygomatic 2 and lacrimal 2. So there is again a pattern here. If you can see, 1 2 2 2 1 2 2 2. So you can remember it in any way. Then there are 6 ear ossicles and you can remember it as Miss has. M stands for malleus, which is 2 in number, 1 in each ear, and it looks like a hammer. And then there is incus, it is again 2 in number, it looks like an anvil. Anvil is a structure that cobblers, shoemakers use. And then there is stapes. Stapes is again 2 in number, 1 in either of the ears, and it looks like a stirrup. Stirrup is a structure which you use to climb on the back of the horse. And then there is 1 hyoid bone. It is a U-shaped bone, and along with the tongue, hyoid bone forms the hyoid apparatus. Now we will talk about the cranial bones in detail. So we have seen that there is one frontal bone. So frontal bone is present in the region where frontal lobe of brain is present. And if you have read neural control and coordination, so you might be knowing that the frontal lobe of brain is concerned with the imagination, thinking, and doing sequential tasks. Then there is a parietal lobe. Parietal bones are two in number, and below which parietal lobe of brain is present, which is basically a sensory junction. Then there is temporal bone, and they are again two in number, and they are present on the either sides of the brain and near the region of the ear. And it has a process. Temporal bone has a process or a projection that is called as mastoid process. You can feel it if you will touch the regions near your ear. You can feel a projection, and that is called as mastoid process. So that is the projection of temporal bone. Then there is an occipital bone which lies in the region of occipital lobe, and this occipital lobe is concerned with the vision. Then you can see sphenoid. Basically, sphenoid lies in the interior of all the facial bones, and it holds all the cranial bones together. Sorry, it lies in the interior of cranial bones, and it holds all the cranial bones together. It is a saddle shaped bone. Saddle means a chair like structure which is fitted on the back of a horse, which helps you to sit. So it's a saddle shaped bone with a cavity called as sella turcica, which houses the pituitary gland. So this is very important. Sphenoid is that bone which holds all the cranial bones together, and it has a cavity called as sella turcica, which houses the pituitary gland, the master gland. And ethmoid. So where is the location of ethmoid? Ethmoid is present in the roof of the nasal cavity. So it lies in the roof of the nasal cavity. Now we will look at the facial bones. So we have seen that there are 14 facial bones and how they are situated. So let's start with the nasal bone. So nasal, that is present in the region of the nose. So these are two nasal bones, as you can see here. Lacrimal bone is present inside the eye orbits. So that is present inside the eye orbit. Then there is palatine. Palatine is present in the region of hard palate. So the region inside your mouth, which you can touch, the roof of your mouth that you can touch with your tongue, that is hard palate. And the bone that is present in that region is palatine. Then there are two nasal conchae. These bones act like filters, and they are present on the inside in the openings of the nose. And then there is zygomatic. Zygomatic, or the cheek bones, they are also referred as cheek bones. Then maxilla, which forms the upper jaw, they are two in number. There is a single mandible, and one of the strongest inside your face. And then there is vomer. Vomer is a bridge-like structure that is present in the center of the buccal cavity. Maxilla articulates with all facial bones except mandible. So what it is saying, that maxilla is connected. Basically, it is connected, or it is joined with all the facial bones except mandible. Here I mean directly. It is not directly connected with mandible. Rather, it is connected with the help of muscles. Masseter is a muscle that brings lower jaw upwards, and depressor mandibulis is the muscle that brings jaw downwards. So these are the two muscles, and masseter is the strongest muscle of the human body. Now we will look at the ear ossicles. So ear ossicles are 6 in number, 3 in each ear. And we have already discussed that there is malleus, which looks like a hammer. Then there is incus, which looks like an anvil. And then there is stapes, which look like a stirrup. Malleus is modified articular bone. Incus is modified quadrate bone. And stapes is modified hyomandibular bone. So remember these things as such, don't go into the detail. And then the joint that is present between malleus and incus is hinge joint, and the joint that is present between incus and stapes is ball and socket joint. Now we will look at the hyoid bone. So hyoid bone is present at the floor of the mouth and does not articulate with any other bone, means it does not interact or joins with any other bone. So as you can see in this diagram here, this is the hyoid bone that is present in the floor of the mouth, and it looks like a U-shaped bone, and with a greater horn, lesser horn, and a body. And along with the tongue, it forms hyomandibular apparatus. Now we will talk about a very important aspect associated with the cranial cavity, the cavity in which the brain is present. So it opens posteriorly by a hole called as foramen magnum. The brain is connected to the spinal cord at this foramen. So basically this hole is the reason from where the spinal cord is connected to the brain, and surrounding this foramen there are two round protuberances which I have shown with the blue color here. There are two round protuberances or projections called as occipital condyles. इनको कहते हैं occipital condyles that articulate with the atlas. So occipital condyles जो है वो join रहते हैं atlas जो कि first cervical vertebrae है, इसके साथ जुड़े रहते हैं, and this joint is called as condyloid joint or ellipsoid joint, and this joint allows the nodding movement of the skull और nodding movement of the head. इसी joint की मदद से आप nodding movement करते हैं. और दूसरा जो जॉइंट है वो प्रेजेंट रहता है एटलस और एक्सिस के बीच में. जैसा कि आप देख सकते हैं, एक्सिस इज कनेक्टेड विद द एटलस वाया एन ऑडोंटॉइड प्रोसेस, और पेग एक ऑडोंटॉइड प्रोजेक्शन होता है जिसके द्वारा जो सेकेंड सर्वाइकल वर्टिब्री है दैट इज कनेक्टेड विद द एटलस, एंड दिस अलाउज द which movement? This is a pivot joint, so this allows sideways movement. So you have seen that condyloid or ellipsoid joint allows the nodding movement, while the pivot joint allows the sidewise movement. Now we will talk about the vertebral column. Vertebral column is 71 centimeter long and it is made up of 33 vertebrae, which becomes 26 in adults. Vertebrae has an anterior process or projection called as pre-zygapophysis, and it is directed upwards, and a posterior process called as post-zygapophysis, which is directed downwards. So let me show you this with a pointer. So suppose this is a vertebrae. So it has an anterior process called as pre-zygapophysis and a posterior process called as post-zygapophysis. And these processes or projections help in the articulation between the different vertebrae, means they help in the attachment of different vertebrae with one another. So now we will look at one single vertebrae to understand its structure. So as you can see here, this is the body part of a vertebrae. The three main part of a vertebrae that we are going to consider here is body. This is referred as transverse process, means the process which extends on the lateral sides of a vertebrae, and this is spine. So these are the three prominent structures that we'll be talking about in coming slides. So here I have shown vertebrae, three different diagrams of vertebrae in which you can understand the positioning of transverse process. So these are the transverse process. So here you can see these structures here. These are the spines. Spines are seen on a lateral view, and this is showing the posterior view, and again these side outgrowths are the transverse process. So basically a spine develops four different kind of curves: cervical curve, thoracic curve, lumbar curve, and a sacral curve. This would be spine, sorry. spine. The cervical curve is developed when a child lifts his head to investigate the world. So this anterior convex curve is developed during that time. And the lumbar curve is developed when a child tries to stand erect. And these thoracic and sacral curves, they are the secondary curves, and they are formed uh, as per the lumbar and cervical curve. So these are the four different curves. They are very important. Now we'll talk about some deformities. So the first deformity is kyphosis. Kyphosis is an exaggerated concave kyphotic curvature of the thoracic vertebral column. So how does it look like? If you can see here, so instead of being little convex, as you have seen in this diagram, the thoracic vertebrae becomes more concave. So this leads to a structure called as humpback. So this is kyphosis. Then there is a condition called as lordosis. So lordosis is an exaggerated convex curvature. Means instead of being concave, the structure becomes convex. So let me erase all the ink. So you can see the structure becomes convex. So it is commonly known as sway back posture, sway back. And then there is scoliosis. So scoliosis is an abnormal lateral curvature of the vertebral column in which the spine becomes abnormally curved. So this is scoliosis. So there are three main deformities, and the one that is important for you is kyphosis. So now we will talk about each vertebrae in detail. So the first one is cervical vertebrae. Cervical vertebrae, there are 7 cervical vertebrae, and out of which 1, 2 and 7 are called as atypical vertebrae, while 3, 4, 5, 6 are the typical vertebrae. So the meaning of typical and atypical is that 3, 4 and 6, they follow the similar pattern. Means they have got a similar structure. As you can see here, there is a body, then there is a transverse process, as you can see, with a hole in between for the passage of the vertebral arteries. So ये वो जगह है जहाँ से vertebral arteries pass करते हैं. उसके बाद you can see there is a structure called as vertebral foramen, and there is spinous process. So this is the spine which I was talking about in the last slide. So here the spinous process is bifid, means it is divided, spinous process, and then there is a transverse process. So why we are saying that first, second and seventh vertebrae are atypical. So let's see. The first cervical vertebrae is called as atlas. So it is atypical because of having articular facets for occipital condyles. Facets are like depressions, गड्ढे हैं जिसमें occipital condyle, जो कि foramen magnum के बगल से निकलने वाले दो occipital condyle आके fit होते हैं atlas के अंदर में. And there are 2 occipital condyle. That's why our skull is dicondylic. So the first vertebrae atlas has got those curves or those depressions for holding those occipital condyles. So that's why it is atypical or different from the others. And apart from this, it has got facets. It has also got curves or depressions for odontoid peg. So we have already talked about these structures. Let me show you. If you see this diagram, so atlas is having location for accepting the occipital condyle. These locations are referred as facets, and it is having another location for accepting these odontoid processes or odontoid process from the axis. So that's why it is different. Now the second vertebrae, which is called as axis, is atypical because of having odontoid peg. Peg is again a projection, pointed projection, which fits into the facets of atlas. Facets are depressions, gaddhe hain basically. The seventh vertebrae is atypical because it lacks foramen transversarium. So what is foramen transversarium? If you remember, I was talking about a hole here through which the vertebral arteries pass. So the seventh vertebrae does not have this foramen transversarium. So that's why it is different from other. Apart from this, it has got undivided spinous process, means the spinous process that is present in seventh vertebrae is pointed one. It is not bifid like other vertebrae. So that's why it is quite prominent. If you will touch the end of your neck with your hand, if you will feel it, you can feel a pointed thing out there. So that's why seventh cervical vertebrae, it is also known as vertebrae prominence because of the prominent nature. Now let's talk about the thoracic and lumbar vertebrae. So this is the structure of thoracic vertebrae. So if you remember, thoracic vertebrae has facets, or it has got cavities for binding with the ribs. So as you can see in this diagram here, these are two facets, or these are the two cavities for binding with the ribs present in the thoracic vertebrae, and the body region of thoracic vertebrae more or less looks like a heart, and then there is a spinous process, and these structures, the transverse processes that are present in the thoracic vertebrae, they are basically meant to support the ribs. So they are also referred as costotransverse facets. And this is the diagram of a lumbar vertebrae. So lumbar vertebrae, they are really strong, and the body of lumbar vertebrae looks like a bean shaped or kidney shaped body it has got, and it is very strong, or I would say it is one of the strongest vertebrae among cervical and thoracic vertebrae, because it has to bear the entire weight of the body, and it has strong transverse process, and the spines are pointed upwards. So basically the spines are very strong, and they basically bear the entire weight of the body. Now this is a comparison between different parameters of thoracic vertebrae and lumbar vertebrae. So the spine in case of thoracic vertebrae is long, undivided, means it is pointed, and downward directed, means it is directed downward, and in case of lumbar vertebrae the spine is short, flat, and directed upwards. The facets for ribs in case of thoracic vertebrae are present on the transverse process and the centrum. Centrum is also called as body. And since there are two facets, so that's why the ribs are referred as bicephalic. While lumbar vertebrae does not have any facets for the ribs. And then there are transverse process. Transverse process in case of thoracic vertebrae, they are club shaped, while in case of lumbar vertebrae it is thin and elongated. The body in case of thoracic vertebrae is heart shaped, while in case of lumbar vertebrae the body is kidney shaped. Now we will look at the structure of sacrum and coccyx. So as you can see, there are some foramens in case of sacrum, present in the sacrum, and these foramens are referred as anterior or pelvic sacral foramina, and this is the attachment site of the lumbar vertebrae with the sacrum. That's why this is referred as lumbosacral articular surface. And then there is coccyx. Coccyx, as you know, it is a fusion of four bones, and it is attached with the posterior region of sacrum. Now the next structure that we are going to see is sternum and ribs. So it is again a part of axial skeleton. So in this lecture we will only talk about the axial skeleton. In the next lecture I will be talking about the appendicular skeleton. So if you can see the structure of sternum here, so this is sternum, and also referred as breastbone. So it has a structure on the posterior end or the inferior end. This is called as xiphoid process. Then this is the body of the sternum. The another structure is called as manubrium, and it has attachment site for the collarbones. It is called as clavicular notch for the attachment of clavicles. And these are the regions from where the ribs are attached. So how the ribs are attached, let's see. So basically the first rib, let me show you this in this diagram. So the first rib is attached in the manubrium region of the sternum. The second rib is attached at the junction of the manubrium and the body of the sternum. The third rib is attached in the body, fourth in the body, fifth in the body, sixth in the body, and the seventh in the body. So that's why these ribs, which are attached directly with the body of the sternum, they are called as vertebrosternal ribs, and they are referred as true ribs. So ribs 1 to 7, they are true ribs because they are directly attached with the body of the sternum. So they are basically vertebrosternal ribs. Now ribs 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, they are attached with the hyaline cartilage. This blue color cartilage that is shown here is hyaline cartilage, or also referred as costal cartilage. So ribs 8, 9 and 10, they are attached with the hyaline cartilage of the 7th rib. So that's why they are referred as false ribs. False ribs from 8 to 10. So there is a mistake in this diagram. This would be 10. So from 8 to 10, it is false ribs or vertebrochondral ribs. The first one is vertebrosternal ribs. The second one is vertebrochondral ribs. And the last one, these 11 and 12, they are not attached with the sternum. So they are floating ribs, or they are also referred as vertebral ribs. So we have seen there are three kinds, basically three types of ribs. The first one is true ribs from 1 to 7, false rib from 8, 9, 10, and the last two 11, 12 are called as floating ribs or vertebral ribs. This is vertebrochondral and this is vertebrosternal. So that's all for this lecture. Thank you.